in that basement, by myself to go get what we needed to bring up. And I was down there, and somebody like tapped me on the shoulder to the point it hurt. I turned around. There was nobody there. Absolutely nobody there.
Yeah.
So, and then another time I was down there and I smelled lilac really strong, and it got cold. I walked another foot, normal temperature, but then I walked back. I didn't smell the lilac. But, imagination. The only thing down in an old basement like that you'd think you'd smell would be the sewer pipes, But then again, I also did camera repair on digital cameras, and I'd be down there sometimes 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning redoing repairs because I wouldn't be bothered by people asking me questions while I had somebody's camera all tore apart. I started next to my office downstairs. There was a staircase that was left over, from when it was a hotel. It went up to the business offices, to the owners, to the, the accountant and all that stuff. And next to us, there was an old Bank of California building, which was vacant for years. Nobody there. On the other side, it was vacant for a couple of years, so it was nobody there. I swear to God, I'd be in my office, and it happened like one night. I heard somebody going up the staircase. Their shoes, clunk, clunk, going up the stairs. And I figured, well, gee, maybe one of the owners got in. But then I said to myself, how could they? I double locked the doors from the inside. But I went and checked. There was nobody there. I went up to all the different floors that was still there. Nobody there. I figured maybe some street person somehow got in. Then, about a week or two later, I was in there again. And instead of hearing one person going up the stairs, I heard like a group of people going up the stairs.
Wow.
And then it got to a point I heard people going up the stairs. I heard muffled talking like male and female going up the stairs. And at that point, I went up the next morning and told the owners, I said, I don't care if I'm the general manager or not. I can't work here anymore because this is, something is going on. Yeah. That's when I found out originally the basement was a bar up to around 1920. So from 1870 to 1920, there was a bar. And I was told at that point there was a couple shootings in the bar because it was right where the ships would come in. The sailors would come in and all that stuff, right, And then I found out it was a brothel for quite a few years. And then I found out that there was a murder upstairs when it was a brothel where I guess one of the clients chopped up a prostitute and put her in one of these cases that they used to pack around, those.
Yeah,
in one of those cases. I started thinking, this is really, really scary. And until then, I really didn't believe that much in that type of thing in ghosts and stuff like that. That really changed and opened my eyes that there's something out there that I don't know what it is. I just simply don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what I'm saying is your husband should have open eyes because there is things out there that we can't explain what it is and how it happens and what makes it happen.
Yeah.
So getting back into your books and stuff like that, I mean, you have one book you said it's doing quite well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's doing better than the other one so far.
Okay. I mean...
But, it's funny you mentioned photography because I have a story for you.
Oh, go ahead,
a friend
please.
That took some pictures of abandoned rail cars that were sitting not too far, about 30 miles away from me. And he posted the pictures, and as soon as I saw them, a ghost story clicked in my head. So I did a little research on the car because it was from Chittenango Falls, New York. And I found out the time period, and that just kind of, I wove that into the story. Well, that story started the Ocalo series, which is the groundskeeper every Saturday night tells ghost stories around the campfire. And that was the first story he told, was about this rail car. And um, anyhow, in the last book, the very last story has a really big twist to it. So
Interesting.
cool. Yes.
Yeah. So when your grandmother was telling you these stories, I mean, did you ever get scared when you went home and then pulled the blanket over your head, or did you just kind of like chuck it off a little bit, like, hey, it's a good story?
No, they didn't scare me because I guess you could say I'm kind of a sensitive. Um, I can tell when there's something around. Um, I've seen ghosts. I've been touched myself on the shoulder. Just all kinds of experiences, and I've had them my entire life. So,
That's, unless you've had that actually happen to you, when you have other people say, there's no such thing as ghosts. Well, just like you said, you got touched on the shoulder too. I mean, like with me, it actually hurt when it happened. And there was absolutely nobody there. And I don't know, it was no way it was my imagination, because it even left a little marks for a little while on my shoulder. That's how hard I got tapped. But, I've had, I had a friend that his wife actually got to a point where she was possessed or whatever. I don't know. She was into, the occult and things like that. And all of a sudden, like in her arms would be, bleeding from scratches and stuff. Nobody there. And he'd be there and he could see that, no, she never scratched herself. I mean, it all of a sudden the scratch appeared and she started bleeding. I also have had a couple of mediums on the show that, the same thing. They would go out and, try to help somebody that might be possessed or whatever. And all of a sudden the entity followed her home for some reason. And it was I guess, really hard to get rid of whatever it was. So you got to really watch it on things like that, because, you could be out, I find these people who go out ghost hunting, either some of them are really stupid. Some of them know what they're doing. The worst thing that can happen is for somebody to go out ghost hunting and never done it before and go out and do it by themselves.
right.
You don't know what can happen. And besides, you might fall through a floor or, break a leg somewhere or, have something fall on you. Or you could bring something home that your wife is going to be rather upset.
Yeah. Yeah, I have never done anything like that, and I don't ever plan to, so.
Well, maybe you should, though. Maybe find a local ghost hunting group and go out once with them. It give you some creative ideas on, writing books. New stories.
I get different ideas. Sometimes they come to me in dreams. Sometimes they just pop into my head. Sometimes it's the pictures. I'll see a picture of something, and that's my inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people, their best books they have ever written, like the lady I had on last night, that, a lot of her things would come to her when she went to bed. She, would have a tablet next to the bed, to write notes down. And all of a sudden she'd be dreaming and, oh, wow. Then she had this whole idea for a book or a chapter of the book or, the storyline for the book.
Yep. Yeah. I actually, my last paranormal book has 28 stories in it, and one of them is about a plane crash. Now, mind you, I've never been on a plane my entire life, and this is one that came to me in a dream, and I wrote down as soon as I woke up. And I have a cousin who's really big into flying, and he asked me, he goes, how would you know anything about this plane if you've never been on one? And I tried to explain it to him. So I don't know if it's a good story or not, but I've had people tell me that they're easy reads and pretty good. So I don't know.
Well, if you're getting good compliments on Facebook about people liking your stories and, and people saying it's a good read. One thing, I used to fly a lot. What stopped me from flying is one of my employees was a retired FAA regional director, and he had many years experience as a investigator when planes crash and all this stuff. And we were on a aircraft. We were flying across country, and when the plane took off, we were sitting next to one of the bulkheads. I guess it did something strange. I didn't even pay attention. And he said, "Hey, we're going to stop at a next." The airplane had like a couple stopovers. He says, "We're going to get on a different plane." And I go, "Why?" And he said, "Because that shouldn't do that." And, then, I think about a few months later, that plane got transferred, and it was flying to Hawaii. And I don't know if you remember years ago, but a plane was flying to Hawaii, and part of the top of the aircraft tore off. And
oh, my God.
And some of the passengers got sucked out with seats and all, out of the jet. Well, like I said, he was the regional director for the FAA. And, when that happened, he got a hold of me and he said, "You know what? That was the exact same plane that we were on."
Oh, that's creepy.
I mean, the exact plane. And I think he felt really guilty because he should have reported it to whatever, but he was retired and, he was doing other things. But I tell you, that was after that. I sat back and looked at it, and I'm going, wow, that's the same plane that he said we got to get off of it because it shouldn't do that. And then several months later, it's flying to Hawaii, and the top gets tore off, and people get sucked out. That was enough. You couldn't get me into another aircraft.
Yeah, I would rather take my chances on the ground.
Yeah, somehow getting sucked out of an airplane at whatever attitude it was at, while you're sitting in the chair eating your peanuts and drinking your Pepsi is not a good idea. A fun thought,
Yeah, it don't sound like a fun time.
So you're planning to write a few more books and stuff like that. I mean, how do you, besides put on Amazon, how do you promote yourself on Facebook and stuff like that? Or how do people know about these books you write?
I just, I have a author page on Facebook, and I post stuff on Facebook. I put stuff on Twitter and on Instagram, and that's basically about it.
Yeah, I have this sore subject with Facebook. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wish I could find a publishing company, but the ones that's contacted me, they're like they want like anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 up front, and it's like, that don't work that way for me.
No, you really got to, on Facebook, occasionally I see this one company, right? It says, "Hey, we can publish your books overnight, basically, over the weekend, a couple days. You send us your material, we will print it out and send it to you within a couple days." And, I start feeling, well, they're not really a publisher. All they are is, I hate to say it. You got to watch out. You can get scammed. That's what I like about Amazon, because like my friend Liz, right? She downloads everything to them, and then, they print out the book and, and then they market it for her. And that's the way self-publishing should be, because you're not laying out all this money. So when you get these companies that'll sit there and say, "Hey, for $3,000 or $2,500 or $5,000, we can print this amount of books for you," and then they leave you hanging. What are you going to do? Go down in front of a grocery store and say, "Hey, you want to buy my book?" I mean, Amazon is really great from that aspect for people who are artists, making jewelry or writing books and stuff like that. They can get their word out and sell it, that way.
Right. Yeah, and the weird thing is, my books actually do better in the United Kingdom than they do here. But